I'm with the great Andy Worthington for the Colin Crilly Takeover. We're talking about Gaza. You were talking about the old school, the senior league, so to speak, and the sort of space between the propaganda.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been, like many people, I suspect, I've just been absolutely, completely caught up in everything that's been happening in Gaza and the horrendous slaughter, the genocide, as I think it's going to be described as. I mean, a few days ago, the death toll surpassed that of Srebrenica, the massacre in Bosnia in 1995, which was...
It's all flaring up a little bit now.
Which was later, of course, officially declared a genocide. So this is a genocide. And yet it has the full support still of so many Western countries. Obviously, the United States has the most critical role in that. And actually, one of the things that I was thinking, I keep seeing things on social media. So someone today posted about Ronald Reagan and how Ronald Reagan, at the time of Menachem Begin, definitively said to Israel, you must stop what you're doing now. A version of what's happening in Gaza, but we must remember what's happening in Gaza is worse than anything they've ever done. But a version of that, and said, you have to stop this. All the world is seeing is a 7-year-old child with their arm blown off.
Yeah.
This cannot be allowed. The other day I was reading about somebody suggesting that in the early 90s, so I think this was probably under Clinton at the time, but it may have been at the end of George W. Bush Sr., but anyway, the State Department official was out in Israel, and the story goes that they actually held up a check, the amount of support for Israel, and tore it up in front of them. Mm-hmm. That was the message: stop what you're doing. And this has been throughout Israel's history that our international human rights bodies have found themselves unable to enforce the many declarations of war crimes by Israel, and our governments have been involved in this game where they keep trying to pull Israel back from the brink. And that's where we're not at now, that there appears to be no willingness to do that whatsoever. And that's so deeply shocking because so much of this involves Western weapons. And again, the United States is most deeply involved in this. But we're just not hearing any kind of grown-up diplomatic understanding that this is a conflict that involves two sides. That this has been happening for 75 years. That one side is the settler aggressor, and the other side is the displaced people who are forced into a position of resistance. We're not hearing the truth about how Gaza is technically, legally, unoccupied territory. Still, Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, 2006. Hamas was elected. Israel imposed a total blockade on Gaza, which it maintains, and which now it's using to starve the people there to death, depriving them of water. I've just been reading about people who are surviving on 2 sips of water a day. 2 sips of water. Medical supplies. The hospitals are now starting to become unable to function. The death toll I just saw today has nearly hit 9,500.
Including little ones on incubators?
Yeah, exactly. 130 babies on incubators. The scale of it is just absolutely just astonishing. And we're watching it play out in real time as well. I mean, I haven't been watching much of the Western media because I can't stand their bias, frankly. But it's on Al Jazeera and it's on Twitter, or X as I should call it now, where actually there's just frontline reporting from Gaza, from the people in Gaza, the endless death. What can I say, Andy? You reach a point where words fail you somehow.
You do so eloquently, Andy. What do you make of the role of Iran in all this?
Well, I don't know at the moment. Obviously, Iran and Hezbollah, there's a connection there, and I suppose there's a connection through them to Hamas. But I mean, one of the problems is that we're hearing Hamas, Hamas all the time. So first of all, the most obvious lie that we have, I mean, the grotesque lie, which has been stated publicly by Israeli officials who have said the most extraordinarily abhorrent things, is that, there are no innocents in Gaza. Everyone is Hamas. This is going beyond them pretending that they're having to kill civilians because they're being used as human shields. This is just no Palestinians innocent, slaughter them all. And that's the great fear that it's just going to carry on until somebody says stop. But there's nothing that I've seen. I mean, and I've been watching Palestinian people come together, watching films of this, of the life that they're living now, which is just death everywhere, and trying to save people, dealing with all the dead people, so many dead children, and the stories of so many talented people who've been murdered by Israel. I mean, so many talented people in Palestine, doctors and scientists and artists, all of them slaughtered. And a place that I haven't seen anything to suggest to me, nothing, that any of these people had any meaningful connection to Hamas whatsoever. The leader of Hamas lives out in Qatar. Clearly, there are Hamas militants within Gaza somewhere, because some of them were the people who broke through the border on October the 7th and caused those terrible atrocities in Israel. But the everyday life of the Palestinian people seems entirely to have been about survival for the last 16 years, 17 years. And they have no connection to them at all. So, I don't know. I don't know how we're supposed to think what Hamas's real role is. How many people are involved in Hamas? What are the connections with these other countries? I think, to go back to your point about the connection with Iran, and and I mentioned Hezbollah, the danger really is that something's going to escalate in the near future
across the Middle East,
if Israel doesn't back down. I mean, with other countries, it's obviously it's a different matter. I mean, crucial to this is Egypt, where it's become clear that Israel's plan is the complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza. I think we can say that now. Well, in fact, I would say there are two aims. The first aim is genocide until the point at which the entire population of Gaza, 2.3 million people, can be pushed out of Israel, out of the occupied territories forever, into Egypt. Egypt isn't going to play ball. This hasn't been thought through. Why on earth would Egypt accept 2.3 million refugees into the Sinai Peninsula? I just don't see that it's going to happen. So, what is their plan? Everything, like I say, everything is going to escalate. I saw Biden yesterday wandering off somewhere, in some TV footage, really looking like a man who's just not even connected with it. He went out to Israel, was it last week or the week before, and gave an unbelievably incoherent, rambling speech that contradicted itself, that was full of pointless platitudes. Obviously, he's completely bought into the notion that Israel must be protected at all costs. But I've been noticing Blinken, who's out in Israel at the moment, and he's looking uncomfortable. To me, he's looking uncomfortable. Maybe he's not, but it looks like, and this sounds very harsh, but it looks like he's in a room with people where the penny has just dropped, and he's like, oh, I'm actually with the Nazis, and we're talking about the final solution, because that's what it feels like.
It's the same playbook, isn't it? If you look through history. I mean, there's precedent here.
Yeah, and it's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, just on the notion that the abused becomes the abuser, writ large.
Yes.
And I think there are different sides to this story, Andy. I think that some of Israel's genocidal settler violence, that this was their chosen land, and that they declared the state of Israel in 1948 after expelling 750,000 Palestinians and killing 15,000 people in brutal massacres, village by village. But some of those people, after the Balfour Declaration, had been invited to Israel. So Israel's population, Jewish population was about 10% in the 1910s, and then increased by tens and tens and tens of thousands in the decades that followed. These are the people that first started, militarizing with the help of Britain and other countries to violently establish the State of Israel. This is while the Holocaust is happening in Europe. And I think that some of these people, their connection with the Holocaust doesn't really exist. They were removed from it, already occupying somebody else's land and planning to violently cement their control of it.